Next up, we had the pleasure of speaking with Diego Marcos, who was unable to join us live today, but we had the pleasure of being able to pre-record with him on his thoughts of how Wolvik helps further enable A-Frame to help developers build for WebXR and on XR on the web. So let's hear from Diego, and then we'll get back to you. Julie and I will get back to you with our closing remarks on today's session.
Wonderful. Amazing. Here we go.
Okay. Hello. Hi, Diego. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Definitely. Just to remind everyone, we spoke with Diego back with First Polys, and he was giving us kind of like a run-in of the projects he was working on A-Frame and kind of the evolution of all of that. And so he's totally appropriate to kind of bring back for these conversations that we're having, introducing a new browser. So Diego, for those of us that don't know much about you, please give us some more background information about who you are and what are you doing in the XR industry.
Yeah, so I started working on web-based VR back in the day. It was probably 2013. I was working at Mozilla at the time. I was working for Firefox OS, the operating system for smartphones, if people remember. And on the side, I got one of the first DK1s and DK2s from Oculus, and I was experimenting on the side how it could integrate a headset with the browser. We were not even talking about standards at the time, but it was just like I was toying around with the hardware and interested in VR in the early days. But Josh Carpenter from Mozilla was also in parallel interested, and an initiative internally started in Mozilla to create a new standard called WebVR at the time. For those that don't know, WebVR and WebXR is an API that browsers implement and allows websites to integrate VR and AR content. And WebVR was the first iteration of that standard API that is now, it's been renamed to WebXR to accommodate more use cases than VR. So at the time, I got involved with Josh, and I'm a web developer as background. And I realized, actually creating VR content is not easy if you have a web development background. So what can we do about it? And that's when we started to experiment with content creation tools for web-based VR. And one of the prototypes is what ended up in A-Frame. So how can we onboard web developers to create VR and AR content? So what was the skill set? So they know HTML, they know JavaScript, they know CSS. So how can we recycle all that knowledge for people to also build VR and AR content? And in 2015, we released A-Frame. And the rest is history. It's like 7 years after I'm still maintaining the framework, and there's like a great community around it, very dynamic, and a lot of people creating cool stuff with it. And that's today.
Yeah, that's amazing. And your work and your continued work towards these developments are definitely beneficial for the industry at large, and to help kind of onboard developers, like you said, to this new form of this new evolution of the web. And it's the evolution is exemplified by, for example, this new browser, Wolvik, being introduced to the ecosystem. So why are you in particular so excited about having a new browser introduced?
Yeah, the more browsers is better for users, and is better for developers. For users, is more options, more choices, and it's good to have competitions. It's like browsers, they're gonna compete with one another to provide the best experience and best features for users. And for developers, it's also really nice because it speeds up implementation of new standard APIs. So the process usually is like browser vendors gather and they decide, they discuss what APIs, what new standards we need, or we'd be interested to to create. And once those standards are created, then browsers, they have to implement. And sometimes it can take a while. And it's nice to have multiple competing browsers, since when a browser decides to implement an API, it's going to put pressure on the others to also do it. And the result is that we have the newest and greatest APIs faster available for developers. And also, when it comes down to create new standards, it's nice to have multiple perspectives. Right now, like the Meta browser team is doing an excellent work at driving new standards, but obviously they have a certain direction, certain strategy as a company, and all the APIs and standards, they're going to follow that track. So it's nice to have other browser vendors and other voices in the standards that bring the different perspectives and different priorities. That is not just what Meta needs. So it's going to create like a collection of standards and APIs that is going to have is going to incorporate more perspectives, and that's nice for developers and users at the end.
Yep, absolutely. Competition breeds innovation. It breeds acceleration, and then adoption as well. So I definitely think that's definitely true for that. And then specifically with what you're working on with A-Frame, how does that affect what you're working on, and how does that help progress your efforts?
Yeah, so it grows the pie. The more browsers we have, the more devices that they have a browser, and the bigger the audience that developers can target to create content. And A-Frame is as a content creation tool, we want to support every browser, we want to support every device. And the bigger the pie, the bigger the audience, the more developers creating content, and hopefully the more people using A-Frame, and the bigger the community. So that's great.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Diego, for sharing your thoughts with us. We look forward to continuing to speak with you and hearing about the progress that you're making, and specifically that progress as it relates to this new browser that's being introduced. So we look forward to seeing all the new creations and what goes on within this browser and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you. Exciting times. Thank you for having me.
What a great interview.
That was awesome. It's so awesome to see people that have been with us throughout the years kind of come back and continuously kind of give us their updates and the appreciation for this new development on the web, the appreciation for what we're doing to help, further their voices and their work to develop these incredible capabilities for us. And Diego is definitely doing a lot of that through A-Frame, for existing developers to help onboard them into WebXR. So I appreciate him for that.
Yeah, I think, the key is that we remain a community moving forward as we explore these different browsers, platforms, the challenges. I've been reading in the feed of all the chat and stuff on all of our places that we can actually watch, people could watch this show today. And one of the big conversations is about extensions. I've been hearing that over and over again from my interview with James Kaplan from Meet Kai and Jonathan Haley as well from Wonderland. Is wherever we can try and build extensions to help efficiencies and make that user experience as barrier-free as possible, we will get that adoption. We will have that interest and more creators in the space. So yeah, it's exciting times and lots of conversations, lots to talk about. I know you and I behind stage were like, what are we going to talk about for 8 minutes? But there is so much to talk about, and we are going to need to keep doing these events with our community to hear how things are developing. What challenges, what questions does the community have? I can see they're talking about payment. How do you pay for things? How do you sign up in different hardware devices and things like that. So keeping our community going with these questions is so important. So
and what I particularly like about what Igalia is doing with Wolvik is that it seems that they are very open to discussions within the community and feedback, and they're welcome feedback and continuing to incorporate that feedback into updates and next generations of their browser. And they've already done so much to kind of pull in the best of what we've experienced within other browsers like Firefox Reality and the Quest browser, and even more than that I even anticipated for, using XR on the web. So it really seems like they have some foresight into what they want it to become. Again, full screen. I'll just go back to what they were saying, Brian, and then we're saying on the original conversation. The first conversation is, you go into full screen and it's 360 immersive. So that's like, these are like these new standards that they're like helping to push for, interoperability, easier access throughout the web, and it's really going to really help exponentially grow adoption, across hardware devices. So I'm appreciative of what they're doing in that sense.
Yeah. And, let's face it, nobody really has a handbook on everything that we are building today. So it will take time to work through these standards. And that's why this communication of community is so important, that we address all of the concerns that are out there, and that Agalia and, teams like, Meet Kai implementing AI, that we do have those standards in place to make sure that we are setting ethical design. It comes back to ethical design and best practices in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, that being said, right, I know exactly where you're going with this, Julie. That being said, I'm sure we'll see a lot of this kind of talk and developments in the next polys that's coming up, right? On the third polys on March 4th of 2023. So I'm really excited for that, and to see like how much we've grown in the past year as a community building this.
Oh, sorry.
Julie has a graphic to share.
No, I know I do have a graphic to share, but I don't know. It shifted over and then it came back again. But there it is. I'm gonna put my head up. But you and I are the polys again. This is our third year in a row, and we get to celebrate our community one more time. So nominations are open, and nominate the developing team, an experience. We've got a lot of different categories. Follow WebXR Summit Series and the polys, and you too can nominate your favorite developer or experience that's out there. So
we look forward to seeing you guys at the polys, and we're going to do even more things in the metaverse. So stay tuned for that, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for assembling the pack. Thank you both.